So Republicans in Congress are calling for a second special counsel to investigate possible Democratic wrongdoing during the election. Nearly 24 members of the House Judiciary Committee signed a letter to the Justice Department urging it to examine possible collusion between Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration in the email probe, as well as intelligence unmasking and links between Democrats and foreign actors in Ukraine and Russia. For more on the possibility of a new Clinton investigation and the ongoing Russia probe, we're joined by Fox News anchor and former defense attorney Greg Jarrett. Great to see you, Greg.
Good to see you.
This is really interesting. I mean, so a band of Republican congressmen have really gotten together to push this issue of a second special counsel to reopen this investigation.
Yeah, and my question is, what took them so long? I mean, honestly, I've written more than a dozen columns beginning a year ago identifying all of the things that are cited in this 5-page letter signed by 14 congressmen on the House Judiciary Committee.
Well, the election, explain why you don't think that should have been a distraction.
Well, the election should have underscored the need for a special counsel because Hillary Clinton was the Democratic nominee. And the evidence was laid out against her very nicely by James Comey when he held his infamous news conference a year ago this month, in which he laid out a compelling case for how she violated the Espionage Act. But then at the very end, he completely misinterpreted the law, saying that she didn't intend to violate the law. That's not the legal standard.
And no attorney general called Comey out on that.
Yeah, and why? I mean, look, previous attorney generals could have done so. Michael McCasey absolutely did so. But you had a Democratic administration with Loretta Lynch in the chair. And interestingly, this committee is now saying, we want you not only to investigate Hillary Clinton for the email case, and the statute of limitation hasn't run, but pay to play, and there's some evidence of that, and we want you to investigate those two people that you see on the screen to the right, Loretta Lynch, for whether or not she unduly influenced the investigation, and James Comey for whether, he was engaged in politics. And both arguably could be potential crimes. What took James Comey so long to reveal the fact that Loretta Lynch asked him to lie about the nature of the investigation? He just revealed it recently in his congressional testimony. Why did he conceal that information? That's one of the reasons why these members of Congress want a new special prosecutor devoted to just that.
And what's also interesting about the need for a second special investigation here is some of your writing. You point out that we should really take a second or a closer look into the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
And how she used her office, right, to obviously enrich herself and her husband.
Right. It's a crime to use your public office to confer a benefit to a foreign government in exchange for money. Did she do that? We don't know, but there's some evidence that suggests it. Her emails demonstrate that donors gain special access. I'll give you just one example. She helped UBS avoid the IRS, and after that, a tenfold increase from the bank to her foundation, and her husband got paid $1.5 million. Is that pay to play? We need to know. There should be a special counsel.
So as we wrap up here, Greg, what's the next step? The request has been put forth, and now what needs to happen?
Well, several things could happen. Congress could act on its own by simply reenacting overnight the independent counsel statute, which had expired. It still exists on paper. All you have to do is vote it. Absent that, the Attorney General could appoint a new special counsel, not Robert Mueller, but somebody else, to look into this. So there are a couple of different avenues. Or the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is already examining Loretta Lynch, could expand its probe into Comey himself as well as Hillary Clinton. And the FBI has mountains of evidence in their files over the course of a year's investigation that could be mined.
Interesting. We haven't heard much from Comey recent weeks.
I think he's writing his book. He is, as they say in Washington, cashing in.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Follow this one for sure.
Time for a special prosecutor to be appointed to investigate Hillary Clinton. According to new reports, the infamous Uranium One deal that sold 20% of U.S. uranium to Russia was only approved by Hillary Clinton's State Department after Kremlin-tied business interests made a $145 million donation to the Clinton Foundation. Now, since the election, Democrats have been screaming about Russian influence on U.S. politics, and I get that. We don't want foreign governments playing a role in our elections. So why aren't Democrats calling for a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton's relationship with Russia then? With me now, history professor and author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Always good to be here, Liz. Thank you.
All right, Ian, let me ask you very simply here. Why wouldn't we appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, but not them specifically so much as the two scandals that involved them, the Uranium One deal and the Trump dossier?
This reminds me of last Monday when Fox News talked about hamburger emojis for a few hours after Robert Mueller made his big announcement. This is what we do when we want to distract, when the Trump administration wants to distract from the real things that are going on, the dumpster fire that's going on in their White House. This uranium business is nothing. It's got as much substance to it as the claims that Obama wiretapped Trump, that Susan Rice unmasked people, both of which I came on here and said at the time, investigate away, do whatever you want to do to find out what you can find out about it, because you're not going to find out anything about it. There is nothing there. You mentioned $145 million. That claim has already been debunked. The investor who is associated with $145 million is a man named Frank Justra. He sold his shares in Uranium One 3 years before the deal was approved by the State Department and the 8 other agencies. The Weekly Standard, conservative, did a fact check. They found Hillary Clinton was not involved in this at all. There is nothing here. But if they want to waste money, if congressional Republicans want to waste money like they did on the Benghazi investigations, hey, it's not my money. Oh, wait a minute. It is my money because I'm a taxpayer.
Wait a second. There's so many things in that. First of all, why wouldn't we investigate this? Because it's important that American citizens have confidence in our government. The $145 million, you realize that these types of business deals, pay-to-play schemes, don't happen in a matter of months. The fact that he sold his shares 3 years before, and by the way, the guy you're talking about, Geistra, is a Canadian mining magnate. The fact that he sold his shares in Uranium One 3 years beforehand means nothing. The fact of the matter is $145 million was donated to the Clinton Foundation by Russian-tied interests very shortly after this Uranium One deal was approved. And make no mistake, the Hillary Clinton State Department had a lot to do with it. So I would just pose to you, with all these facts, with all these conflicting reports, if there is a chance, even a sliver of a chance, that Russia was trying to influence our election and was trying to gain access to Hillary Clinton, who they assumed would be the next president of the United States, through giving her favors and then getting uranium in return, why wouldn't it be in our best interest to investigate that?
It is in our interest. We could investigate anything you want. There's an infinite number of dollars to be spent on investigations. There's an infinite amount of hours in the day to spend on investigations. Why not spend billions of dollars investigating the landing of green Martians on the planet? That's got about as much fact-based evidence behind it as this. There is nothing here. First of all, the claim about 20% of uranium also is a false one. Last year, Uranium One mined 2% of U.S. uranium. That comes to 0.04% of the world's uranium. A. B. Russia got none of the uranium. This is a deal about who
it's Russian-controlled,
invests in the company. But the uranium,
companies.
But Russia doesn't control it. Russia doesn't control it.
Yes, it does.
It can't leave
it's
the
called
US.
Rosatom, and it is closely
doesn't.
tied to the Russian nuclear cluster. It's 20% controlling
but
interest of the U.S. uranium supply. And I could pose to you this question. You're very adamant that you don't think that there is any evidence to warrant an investigation, yet we have spent how much money, an unlimited bucket of resources, on Robert Mueller investigating ties between Trump officials and Russia, and he has come up with nothing. Yet I have not heard you one time in the past year say anything about wasting resources or wasting money on that. And I wonder, could that be because of a political agenda that wants to take down Trump and tie him to Russia, when really you don't care about actual Russian collusion in our electoral system?
Could it be that he has found the opposite of nothing? We've already got a guilty plea from a Trump campaign official admitting that he has lied to the FBI about remember, a Trump campaign official involvement with the Russians. I'm going to read you a list of 9 names of Trump campaign people who have been...
Wait a second. The Trump campaign official... No, this is very misleading.
Names.
The Trump campaign official that you're talking about is George Papadopoulos. He was an unpaid foreign policy advisor who attended 2 foreign policy advisory meetings. When he offered to set up the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, he was shut down publicly by Jeff Sessions and then privately by J.D. Gordon. He lied about his connections to a Russian official, and that was wrong, and he should plead guilty to that. And the Trump administration shut him down and had nothing to do with that. That is not finding any guilt or collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. In fact, it's vindication for the Trump campaign because they had the opportunity to choose the wrong thing, and they didn't. Again, with the resources.
How about Trump Jr.?
All we've had in the past year is nothing, nothing, and nothing. But Democrats don't seem to worry about the money there.
How about Trump Jr.? How about the 9 campaign officials besides Papadopoulos? You've got Carter Page, you've got Paul Manafort, you've got Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, J.D. Gordon, Jeff Sessions, and Michael Flynn, who was probably about to be indicted, who all have met with Russian campaign officials. This was after Mike Pence, just before the inauguration, answered, of course not, when he was asked, have anybody from the Trump campaign met with Russians? That's 9 people who met with Russians after Pence said,
is that
of course
illegal
not.
to do?
Trump Jr. today, there's more news from Trump Jr. today about him having offered an illegal quid pro quo.
No, let me answer my question. Is that illegal to meet with Russians?
No, but it's a lie if Mike Pence says, of course not, nobody met with Russians. That's 9 people to go against what Pence said. What else has Pence lied about? And Donald Trump Jr. might be in very serious danger because he violated a law called theft of honest services when he offered to review the Magnitsky Act and then asked for information
right,
from this
I read
Russian
that
lawyer
report
about
too,
the
and it
Hillary
was
Clinton
anonymous
campaign.
sources and unsubstantiated. So I will wait to pass judgment and to commentate on that out of respect for viewers until we actually know the facts of that, because I am not participating in a witch hunt against President Trump. The point of this segment is it's hypocritical, it's disingenuous for Democrats to claim that they worry so much about Russian collusion, which is something we all should worry about, regardless of which side of the aisle we sit on. And then when it comes to something that might ding the Democratic Party or might be associated with Hillary Clinton, one of the worst Democratic candidates we've ever seen, Democrats don't care at all. They don't care at all, and that's hypocritical. Ian, I do thank you for coming on the show. I enjoy our conversation. Welcome back. 26 people dead in Sutherland Springs, Texas, shot to death in church by a militant atheist who hates Christians. Yet Senator Elizabeth Warren blames the attack on Christians and the GOP. Talk about victim blaming. I'm Liz Wheeler, and this is my final point. Senator Elizabeth Warren took to Twitter following the horrific attack in Texas to blame the GOP, blame the weapon, and condemn our prayers for the victims and their families. She tweeted, "How many kids must die of gun violence on playgrounds and streets every day with no attention at all before we wake up to what's happening? Thoughts and prayers are not enough, GOP. We must end this violence. We must stop these tragedies. People are dying while you wait." Thoughts and prayers are not enough? Yeah, forgive me if I'm not going to take spiritual guidance on taking action from the party who celebrates taking the lives of 1 million unborn babies every year. Senator Warren, all the victims of this attack were believing Christians who worshiped God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. See, this is where you and I differ, where you are disconnected from the majority of the American people. You don't think praying is taking action. I believe prayer makes a difference. And so do millions and millions of Americans, including the Christians who were murdered for their faith in God at this church. Senator Warren goes on, "I'm heartsick for the victims, families, and community of Sutherland Springs, but I'm more than heartsick, I'm angry. How many more people must die at churches or concerts or schools before we stop letting the NRA control this country's gun policies?" Every place you mentioned, Senator Warren, churches, schools, concerts, and you might as well add to that list, college campuses, temples, movie theaters, post offices, malls, elementary schools, all of those places are gun-free zones. Senator Warren, how many more people must die in gun-free zones before we stop letting Democrats who enacted those gun-free zones leave us vulnerable to evil men who want to kill us? Let me remind you, Senator, we have gun control already. Texas has gun control. Firearms are tightly regulated, and it was illegal for this attacker to be in possession of a firearm. Convicted felons are prohibited from possessing firearms, and guess what? This attacker was court-martialed in the United States Air Force, and that is equal to a felony. Did that stop him from waging his attack? No, it didn't, because laws don't stop lawbreakers. He broke the law as murderers do, because murderers don't care about the law. Gun control laws don't stop criminals from committing crimes, but gun control laws make innocent Americans sitting ducks. Senator Warren, you also didn't mention what stopped this attack. Why not? Why didn't you mention that this attacker was stopped by a legal gun-owning citizen who grabbed his own firearm and chased the attacker away? Why didn't you mention that? 1 week ago, liberals were beside themselves. It is shameful, they said, for President Trump to push his pet policies in the wake of a horrible tragedy. That's what you told us. But now, 26 people are dead. And the first reaction from Democrats is to shove their political agenda down our throats, to attack our beliefs and force us to mimic their talking points. That government is greater than God, prayer is for peasants, guns are the problem, and gun control is the answer. Well, Senator Warren, with all due respect, you could not be more wrong. And that's my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.
Joining us exclusively, John Solomon. He's with The Hill. Sarah Carter, Circa News. Sarah, let me start with you. We're talking about bribery. We're talking about blackmail. We're talking about what else that was going on that the Obama Justice Department knew and still gave Putin, Moscow, Russia 20% of our uranium, and the money goes to the Clinton Foundation. Let's talk about it.
Well, back in 2009, the FBI was actually approached by a businessman, by an American businessman, who said, look, I have information on the Russians, and I'm going to give this to you. And they said, would you work with us? They came to an agreement. He went inside. For 15 months, Sean, for 15 months, the FBI was investigating the Russian nuclear industry and the agencies. They knew that there were kickbacks. They knew that there were bribes. And they knew how dangerous this was to national security. And 15 months had passed in the investigation. And then CFIUS, 13 members of the governing board, approved the Uranium One deal to the Russians. I mean, this was something that I contacted FBI officials tonight, FBI sources that were there during that time, and they said the FBI would have had all of this information. It would have been their duty on the board, on the CFIUS board, to report that information. And so now what I'm thinking is, if they did report that information, it's got to be out there. We've got to be able to FOIA it. We've got to be able to see these documents and know what was going on and why the United States government decided to approve a deal that would give 20% of U.S. uranium assets to Vladimir Putin. There's the
John,
connection with Russia.
Let me go to you, John, and your report to Hill. So the FBI basically has evidence in the form of documents, emails, financial records, eyewitnesses proving the Russians used bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering to secure the Uranium One deal, and about $145 million kicked back to the Clinton Foundation. And they knew it in 2009? They knew it before they even approved the deal?
Yeah, you said in your opening monologue that the Democrats are concerned that Russia's tampered with our election results in 2016. Well, 6 years before that, they tampered with our nuclear security. The case proved that the Russia's nuclear industry had bribed their way and compromised the American trucking company that moved all of Russia's uranium in the United States. That's a national security threat. And for 2 years, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, and everybody who's been quoted has said the Obama administration had no knowledge of a national security threat, and that's why they didn't have any problem approving the Uranium One deal. Well, guess what? Tonight, we have a real national security threat that was proven in real time in 2009. And it's going to be interesting to see what Congress does. Tomorrow morning, Chuck Grassley has a hearing with Jeff Sessions on the seat, and I think you might see some interesting questions asked.
All right, and Sarah, and this is stunning, that the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, hid the information. He knew about the bribery, the kickbacks, the extortion, the money, and he also knew, as well as Hillary, and had to sign off along with Hillary Clinton on the deal, even though we know that they're trying to influence every aspect of our security and get control over America's uranium. They still allowed the deal to go through?
Well, and these are many of the same players, right? You had Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein then was head of this investigation when he was in Maryland looking at the trucking company. And remember this, you have a trucking company that's moving American uranium that is involved in bribery, kickbacks, and all kinds of issues. And they're moving a national security asset, uranium. And you have Andrew McCabe, who's the deputy director of the FBI now, who was also charged with that investigation. So there's a lot of questions here.
Is Mueller involved in this?
Yes, and Mueller, who was in charge then.
How does he investigate
FBI.
himself? So we got Mueller having to investigate his boss now, Rod Rosenstein, who also, and Andrew McCabe of the FBI, and probably James Comey. They all knew about this.
That's exactly what we're looking at. These are people who actually knew about this. Now, it's up to Congress to ask those questions, to find out, why did you decide to allow the CFIUS deal to go through with Uranium One? Why did you vote yes on this? What was the FBI
And they knew the Russians were trying
at?
to influence all of our uranium in this country. All right, here's the question. I have a
Absolutely.
final exit question, and we'll have more on this tonight. Did the DOJ, did they deliberately jeopardize America's national security, knowing all of this was going on? In other words, the kickbacks, bribery, extortion, money laundering, allowing this deal to go through without presenting the evidence, and how did Hillary sign off on it and get all this money to the foundation? John, did they risk national security?
I think there's some things we don't know yet. It is possible the Justice Department told the CFIUS members, and they still voted to approve this deal. And it's possible it was kept
you mean they told them about bribery, extortion, kickbacks, and money laundering, and they still would allow the deal to go through by the Russians in our own country?
We don't know the answer to that yet. That's the question, and I can confirm tonight. I'm reporting this out tonight. Senator Grassley, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, began an investigation last week specifically asking all the CFIUS members, did you know there was a criminal investigation? This is going to become one of the most important investigations that are going to evolve this fall.
Sarah, I'll give you the last word. What's coming up? How far is this story going to go? Can you give us a hint where we're headed?
I think the story is going to go far. I know as well that Senator Grassley had started this investigation last week, and that he had asked very detailed questions to the current CFIUS board members. And those board members will now seek the information that he's asking for, because they're going to be looking at, this is a whole new board that's going to be answering these questions. So it's going to be up to them to tell the truth and to deliver the answers to the American people. Okay. And it's going to be up to us to keep pushing this so that answers are delivered, because I do believe national security was at risk. I mean, according to every source I've spoken to.
They knew about it. This is what it proves. There really was a Russia conspiracy, but it's not what the media reported. Great work, both of you. It's amazing the work you guys do, and the rest of the media is ignorant.